All right, people. We are ready to get started. Sorry about the delay. I was fairly certain I had. Shh. Okay, can we put that away now? I was fairly certain I had everything ready to go, but I obviously did not. So we are at chapter 10, and the title of the chapter is World War I and Beyond. So we're going to look at the United States' involvement and participation in World War I. And this chapter is how we go from neutrality, hey people, to war. So one of the things that's important to know about World War I that is significant, that we do not start or participate in World War I in 1914 when it begins. We don't begin participation until 1917 and really don't get and send troops into Europe until 1918. And the war is going to be ending by that time by the end of that year into 1919. So we don't participate for a very long period of time. The casualties will show that out, that there will be in one battle, almost 600,000 men die from England. And our total casualty for World War I is, I think, about 250,000 men. So we don't participate for a very long period of time. And one of the reasons we don't participate in World War I is that World War I has not a bad guy. There's not someone that we can say that person started it, this person. It starts really through an assassination. So it's a very different kind of war in the aspect is there's not good guys and bad guys. Like obviously when we get to World War II, that's a very different kind of setup. So the first thing that we're going to look at is golly Moses. Yeah. It is, I started the day like awesome. Like, yeah, I was ahead. I was like, no, you do have an assignment. So I do need. But you can't do the assignment without this part. So here we go.
Talk about writing the notes tomorrow.
What just happened?
I said we just do this tomorrow.
We can do it tomorrow.
We have school tomorrow?
Yeah, I'll be learning.
Okay.
I knew that, but like we have school Friday
Oh,
too.
good grief.
Yeah.
Hold on a minute.
What?
I thought it was like Good Friday or something.
No, we don't have that.
Grief.
Or did we have that last week? Oh well.
Yeah. Yeah, we just don't have it now, but it's snow days.
It's a better Friday.
That's what I was
Because
asking.
you're at school.
That's what I was asking.
Okay.
Yeah,
Honestly, the Friday was up if we want to.
No, not that one.
Okay, you know what, dude?
This one.
Yeah, might as well just be. Stay.
All right, 2
Don't
seconds.
even go.
Yeah, I got more information. Find me some other assessments. What would you guys do is like cops and
And it's actually one of my. Okay. All right. Now here we go. Nationalism. An intense pride in one's own country or nationality. What makes this different than patriotism is nationality is the idea that yours is better. That this intense pride in your country makes you better than other countries. Patriotism is just a warm, fuzzy feeling that you get from saying the pledge. Nationalism is usually always a bad ism. It's not something that countries usually want their citizens to participate in. European states became more concerned with their own interest than maintaining peace. So when we get ready to start war in 1914, Europe had been at peace for 100 years, no fighting. The issue and problem with that is no one remembers what war was like. And it's really easy to get involved in wars when no one has memory of what they are. And what the memory is has faded into the background. And what becomes more important is fighting for your own country, right? This chest beating kind of thing without the idea that war is war and people will die horrific deaths. We also have all these alliances. We're not going to go into those because that's not what our content is about. But think of the TV show Survivor. I don't watch it any longer, but when it first came on, one of the reasons that it was such an appealing show were all these alliances, right? There were alliances between groups of people that everyone knew, but then there were also these shady alliances that usually never turned up until the end ceremony with the putting out the light. And that's what we all watch for, was people changing and shifting with these alliances. And it's the same thing with these countries. The other part is the arms race. When we talk about arms race, that's weapons. We just have talked about the Industrial Revolution in the United States, how great it was, all the stuff we were building. When we were discussing this in class, I did not include, nor does your textbook include, the fact that we were building weapons. So is countries in Europe. Germany, at this point, has the Krups munitions that has built a weapon that can shoot a projectile the size of a Volkswagen about 2 miles. So that's the other part. When you build weapons of war, what do you do with them? And that's always an issue with the arms race. That's why countries in the 21st century work on how many arms or how many weapons everybody gets, right? So that we don't build these things up and we have a lot of them. That's what Europe has done. They've built all of these weapons of war. And now what do you do with weapons of war? There's only one thing that you do with weapons of war. One thing, and that's it. So some of the things that we've built, tanks, airplanes, and most importantly is this machine gun at the bottom, a Vickers machine gun that's going to be able to massive fire rounds with the intent, purpose to kill people. So militarism is the process of building up a military strength for the purpose of intimidating other countries. If one nation builds up its military, then others must do so as well, right? If you have this, I need this. If you have that, I need this. And so this will be the beginnings of building up the idea of weapons of war. And again, with that intent of using them for that. So this one, don't have you write anything down. This is not tested material. None of this is, but I just want you to see all these secret alliances, how confusing they are, how they switch back and forth, and why the United States, rightfully so, said, we are not getting involved with that. That is some crazy shenanigans. I don't even know if that's the word you guys use anymore, going on in Europe, and we're staying out. Again, trying to keep up with all of this stuff that's going on. Can't do it. So how does World War I start? You do need to know that. It starts with the assassination of the Archduke Ferdinand. That's another reason that we stay out, because an Archduke is a title of nobility, right? This is going to be played in the United States as a war between monarchs, a war between eagles. We don't care what you guys do with all that nobility stuff. We are above all that. So the nephew of the Austrian emperor, Franz Joseph, and the heir to the throne, that is him with his awesome mustachio. He marries Countess Sophie, who was beneath him. And he marries her for love and says, dear uncle, I love this woman so much, I don't care to have the throne. But because there's no one else, he's going to get it. He doesn't like the emperor does not like his nephew, and so he sends him away often to represent the empire in other places. So he sends him on an official state visit to Sarajevo, which is in the Bosnian, on the Balkan Peninsula. And he goes there. When he goes there, he is told, as he sits there in his car, let me turn off the backlight, you are not welcome here. We don't want you here. The Serbs and the Bosnians are telling him this. We don't want you here. if you come here, we will probably kill you. These are people that are not used to being told. These are monarchs, kings. We're going to come anyway. He is met at the train station by the mayor, and the mayor has already had bombs exploding in his city. He shows up and he reads this and he says to the Archduke Ferdinand and his wife Sophie, look, I'm telling you, there are people here to kill you. There is a terrorist group called the Black Hand. They know your parade route. You've advertised where you're going on the newspaper. You're going to die. So the Archduke says, well, maybe we should change the parade route. So one of the things about an empire is that it governs people that are all not the same. That's what makes it an empire instead of a kingdom. If I'm the king of France, I'm king of all the French people. If I'm an emperor, I'm an emperor of a group of people that are Czech, Serbian, Austrian, Hungarian, who don't all speak the same language. Franz speaks German. He's Austrian, so he speaks Deutsch. So he gives the message to all the drivers, we're changing the route. This is the way we're going to go. His driver was Czech, did not speak German, did not get the memo that we were changing the route. And he does not change the route. And so the Archduke on June 28th is assassinated by a Bosnian nationalist. His name is Prince Princip, and he is arrested. The Serbians instantly arrest him. He says he did it. And what Austria says to Serbia, the country, we want him in our country, bless you, to try him in our country. And Serbia says you need to turn everybody else over to us. I'm sorry, Austria says you need to turn everybody else. Serbia says, we're not going to give you this guy. He committed the crime in Serbia. We're going to try him in Serbia. See that he gets a fair trial. Austria says, nope, you got to give it to us. And from this is what starts World War I. It is why the United States stays out, because it is not about anything except this show of force or this show of nationalism and not backing down that's going to bring us to this catastrophic, horrific war of nations. So Serbia is going to refuse. So Austria says, we're going to declare war. Because of all those alliances on that other page, that's what an alliance is. If your country goes to war, we go to war. And so now Russia says, oh, we protect Serbia. We're going to mobilize our troops and we're going to move and declare war on Austria. Just again, for the ridiculousness of this, my AP Euro kids have an assignment about this time that's called If World War I Was a Bar Fight. And it starts with somebody accidentally, they call it a pint because it's knocking a pint onto Serbia knocking a pint onto Austria's suit. And instead of just wanting their suit clean, Austria says, I want a new suit. And then all of a sudden, Austria is standing there and Russia comes up and punches them in the face. It is, and without being too dramatic, it is an absurd reason for going into war. Germany, under their monarch, Kaiser Wilhelm II, sides with Austria. So these are German troops. You can always tell German troops because they wear those helmets with the pike on them. So now Germany is involved. France says, oh, we're going to side with Russia. Why? I don't know. We like Russia. So France is now going to side with Russia. You do not have to know this for testing purposes. Those of you like, oh, that's why there's hardly any words. This is just background. I'm not going to ask you on a test who You do have to know the allies. We'll get those in a chunk, but none of this stuff. Just background. Germany then invades Belgium. Why? Because they want France. So we have to stop and pause and say, what does Germany and Belgium and France have to do with an assassination of the emperor or the heir to the throne of the Austrian Empire assassinated in Serbia have to do with Germany, Belgium, and France? And if we were in the Euro, we would know that Germany has always had the ulterior motive to take France. So they do that. Britain, sitting over there in its island self, says, oh gosh, we're an ally of Belgium. Now we have to declare war on Germany. And now, after 100 years of peace, every major European nation is at war. And what is going to make this war different is machine guns and gas and tanks and chemical warfare that will be used on men throughout this time period. So now we got the two sides. This is what you will need to know for testing purposes. The Central Powers, which is Germany, Austria, and the Ottomans, and the Triple Entente, which is Great Britain, France, and Russia. So those are the two powers separated. So you do have to know who these groups of people are. The problem, again, for the United States at the beginning of this war is there's not a bad person. There's not someone that did something horrible. And we're a nation of immigrants with a whole lot of those immigrants from Germany and a whole bunch of those immigrants from Great Britain. And so that becomes the difficulty as we are set for war. So here's map, 1914. So here's what changes. So the United States stays out. And in our notes next on Thursday, we'll learn it is very good for business because we can sell to both sides. But what changes this story are German U-boats. So a U-boat is a submarine. In auf Deutsch, it's Untersee, a Untersee boat. Submarines. We have submarines at this point. And what happens is those German U-boats begin making war on every boat. So Germany attempts to prevent Britain and France from getting supplies by attacking shipping. Not Navy boats, but all naval traffic. In 1915, Germany announced unrestricted submarine warfare in the waters around Britain. Any ship can be attacked without warning. This, if you know anything about that movie that I cannot stand, Titanic, you know this is the time of big, giant ships, cruise ships. Titanic. There's cruise ships that are about to become part of unrestricted submarine warfare. May 16th, the German U-boat attacked and sank the British liner, the Lusitania. So for those of you that have a Titanic in your head, imagine that ship being sunk by a submarine. It's going to kill 1,200 civilians, including 128 Americans. Now, rightfully so, if there was any reason for the United States to get involved in a war, this would be it. It's 1916. President Wilson says, no, not yet, warning Germany that it had a responsibility to protect non-combatants or risk war with the United States. So we fire a warning shot across the bridge of our ship, of our country and says, whoa, 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 we had Americans on that ship. You should not be sinking ships. Now, here's where, and again, this is not an in-depth class, but here's where we also add that guess what the British were using those passenger liners for? To move weapons. There were weapons on that boat that the British thought, hey, let's put them on passenger ships because they won't sink passenger ships. And at that point, it ceased to be a passenger ship. It becomes a ship of war in which civilians unwittingly and unknowingly are now a part of. Not that that is justification for any of this, but this is what war does. It makes weird decision, or it makes weird circumstances in which there's no right or wrong answer. But when that ship sinks in the United States, instantaneously Germans become the bad guys. So when we're looking for when does Germany become the bad guy, it's the sinking of the Lusitania. Sullivan High School until World War I taught German as part of its foreign language department. This is when, number one, we stopped teaching German at Sullivan High School. And there was also a German weekly newspaper in Sullivan County until World War I as well. So there was something that changed about the perception of this war, and the sinking of the Lusitania will be one of them. So Wilson, in that 1916, the sinking of the Lusitania, there is also an election for President Wilson. And Wilson's slogan to be reelected was, he kept us out of the war. Now, what we need to remember in 1916, there's been 100 years of peace in Europe, but there has not been 100 years of peace in the United States, correct? We have fought a civil war, of which in 1916, there are still men alive that have fought that war. We have fought the Spanish-American War, even though that wasn't a war in the sense, but we have people that have experienced war that are alive. So we feel very differently about that. Isolationist. An isolationist is people in the United States that says we don't want to get involved in international affairs. Their numbers are getting smaller, but they say don't get involved. We don't want to be part of this war. We don't have any dog in this fight. Stay out. So the Sussex Pledge will happen in March after another ship will be sunk by Germany. This time it's the Sussex. Germany does not want the United States to enter. At this point, the war has been going on for 2 years. Germany did not want the United States to enter the war, so they promised to stop attacking merchant ships without warning. Not that they're going to stop attacking, but now we have to warn. Wilson did not want to enter the war, so used this as a political tool for getting reelected. So another thing about what's happened for 2 years in World War I is this has become a trench warfare, meaning men have dug trenches and they are living, dying, fighting in these trenches. World War I does not move across great paths of Europe like World War II will. There are not large battle fights in cities. These are men running across open fields, being slaughtered by machine guns. These battles will cause up to 600,000 men to die in a course of 3 days. 600,000 men in the 3-day battle will be lost. So there's the Sussex all blown up. So the final straw of how the United States gets involved in World War I is this thing called the Zimmer Telegram. Arthur Zimmerman sends orders to a German ambassador in Mexico to say to Mexico, why don't you come in and fight on our side? And the ambassador says to Germany, when we win the war, Mexico will let you take back from the United States, Texas, California, and all the other parts of the Southwest that the United States won from you in the Mexican-American War. Hopefully, you understand when this became public, this was outrageous. Especially, I would assume, if you lived in those places, that you would think this was outrageous behavior. There's no way that at this point in time, we're returning states to Mexico. So this will be the beginnings of our call to war. Zimmerman note was intercepted by the British and conveniently published in newspapers, and rightfully so, outraged that Mexico would even think that that belongs to them anymore. And so the call for war within the United States begins. So the Zimmerman telegram published brings us another step closer to war. Germany's new plan. Germany decided they needed to end the war before the United States. So Germany knows the United States is coming in. So on February 1st, they resume unrestricted warfare. And they are hoping to get the British to surrender. In 1917, they've been fighting for 3 years. The trench warfare never moves more than inches, right? This war is in a confined area. And so the Germans hope to bring about a swift end before the United States jumps in. And they began to attack United States merchant ships without warning, and now Wilson has to take action. A merchant ship, and I don't want to be condescending, but a merchant ship is a ship that's moving goods, like that big old ship that was stuck in the Suez Canal. We are sending stuff to the United States. The United States is sending goods and supplies to Europe. We're sending food, we're sending weapons, we're sending blankets, and in the United States, manufacturers are making tons and tons of money as a result. So we are now at the point that we declare war. April 2nd, 1917, Wilson appears before Congress for a declaration of war against Germany. Congress declares war. The president has to ask for it. The Senate approves 82-6. Hello? Yes. Sure. Bye-bye. Mary, if you need help tomorrow on the assignment, it'll be at the end of the recording. Okay. Senate approves war, House by a vote of 373 to 50. Just so that you know, we've never, ever, ever had a unanimous vote for war, even World War II. So, yes. Yes. All right. So, your assignment is in Canvas. It is a series of articles. I think I have like 7 or 8 posted. Yes. Is it what? I'll put it. I forgot to do that. Let me close this and I will open it so you can see it. Got that, Tipton?
Yeah.
Okay. And what you are doing, you are choosing I didn't put it on there. Oh, I have that part, but not the articles. Okay. The articles, I will show you where they are. If you click the module, and I'll put them on there. but the readings are right here under additional readings. So if you click, let's do anatomy of a World War I soldier. So this would be one of the articles. So it tells you what all this are. And let's see how many there are. So you have a choice, 10 key figures, anatomy of a German soldier, day in the life of a British general, the Great War, inside history, trench warfare, how to win a dogfight, first battle of wipers, and type 5 facts about Franz Ferdinand. So open a Google Doc. Yes, go ahead. Open a Google Doc. You're going to read, do I say 4? 4 of them, and give me a quick summary on what you learned, why you picked it, any of those things, okay? And I'll put the link. I'll get the link up there, okay? And again, apologize for my first 15 minutes of desperate unorganization. Okay. Anybody have any other questions? And we are not in school tomorrow. So we're back to this month, we're back to our normal